What if one simple walk through the forest turned into the most dangerous adventure of your life? Before we begin, subscribe to Ever After Stories for magical tales from around the world. Now, let's discover the timeless story of Little Red Riding Hood. Long ago, on the edge of a vast and beautiful forest, there stood a peaceful little village where everyone knew one another by name. The villagers lived simple lives. They baked fresh bread before sunrise. They tended gardens filled with herbs and vegetables. They gathered around fireplaces in the evenings, sharing stories passed down through generations. Life moved gently there, guided by the changing seasons. Among the villagers lived a cheerful young girl with bright eyes and a heart full of curiosity. Although her real name was known only to a few, everyone called her by the same affectionate nickname, Little Red Riding Hood. She earned this name because of a beautiful red hooded cloak that she wore almost every day. It had been lovingly sewn by her grandmother. The soft crimson fabric wrapped around her shoulders like a warm embrace, and the hood framed her smiling face perfectly. She treasured it more than any possession she owned. Whenever she walked through the village wearing her red cloak, people smiled. "Good morning, Little Red Riding Hood. What a lovely cloak. Be careful not to lose it." And she would always answer with a cheerful laugh, "I never will." She was known throughout the village for her kindness and helpful spirit. She greeted everyone she met. She carried groceries for elderly neighbors. She picked flowers for those who were feeling lonely. And she never hesitated to lend a helping hand. Yet, despite her gentle nature, Little Red Riding Hood possessed one trait that often worried her mother. She was incredibly curious. She loved asking questions, she loved exploring, she loved discovering things she had never seen before. Every mysterious path called to her. Every unusual sound made her wonder. Every hidden corner invited adventure. Her imagination was as wild as the forest beyond the village. Sometimes, while helping her mother gather herbs near the edge of the woods, she would stare into the towering trees. Sunlight filtered through the leaves, creating golden patterns on the forest floor. Birds sang melodies high above. Butterflies drifted between colorful wildflowers. The forest seemed magical, beautiful, endless. "Mother," she would ask, "what lies beyond those trees?" Her mother smiled. "More forest. But what else?" "There are streams and hills. And beyond that?" Her mother laughed softly. "The world is full of wonders." Little Red Riding Hood's eyes sparkled. "Then one day I want to see them all." Her mother brushed a strand of hair from her daughter's face. "Perhaps someday." Then her expression grew serious. "But remember this, the world is beautiful, and sometimes it can also be dangerous." Little Red Riding Hood listened carefully. Though she was adventurous, she respected her mother's wisdom, at least most of the time. Not far from the village, deep within the forest, stood a small cottage covered in climbing roses. It belonged to Little Red Riding Hood's grandmother. Grandmother was one of the most beloved people in the entire region. She was wise and gentle. She told wonderful stories. She baked the sweetest pastries, and she always welcomed visitors with kindness. Whenever Little Red Riding Hood visited, she felt safe and loved. Grandmother taught her how to sew, how to identify herbs, how to bake bread, and most importantly, how to treat others with compassion. "Kindness costs nothing," Grandmother often said, "but it can change someone's entire day." Little Red Riding Hood never forgot those words. She adored her grandmother. Every visit felt special. They spent afternoons drinking tea and listening to rain tap against the windows. They laughed together while kneading dough. They shared stories beside crackling fireplaces. To Little Red Riding Hood, Grandmother's cottage was one of the happiest places in the world. One chilly autumn morning, everything changed. The wind blew stronger than usual. Golden leaves danced through the village streets. Dark clouds drifted slowly across the sky. Little Red Riding Hood was helping prepare breakfast when her mother entered the kitchen. Her face carried concern. "Grandmother isn't feeling well," she said quietly. Little Red Riding Hood immediately looked up. "What happened?" "A messenger arrived this morning. She has caught a fever." Worry filled the girl's heart. "Is she going to be all right?" "I believe so." Her mother placed freshly baked bread into a basket. She added jars of homemade jam, fresh fruit, warm pastries, medicinal herbs. Then she carefully wrapped everything in cloth. "I want you to bring these to grandmother." Little Red Riding Hood nodded eagerly. "Of course, I'll leave right away." Her mother looked directly into her eyes. "What I'm about to say is very important." The girl listened. "The quickest path to grandmother's cottage runs through the forest. You know the way." "Yes, but promise me something." "I promise." "Stay on the path." Little Red Riding Hood hesitated. "The entire time?" "The entire time." Her mother's voice remained firm. "Do not wander, do not chase butterflies, and do not stop to explore. And do not speak to strangers." Little Red Riding Hood smiled reassuringly. "I understand." "Can I trust you?" "Yes, Mother." "I'll go straight to grandmother's house." Her mother adjusted the red hood around her shoulders. "Good." Then she kissed her forehead. "Travel safely." Little Red Riding Hood picked up the basket. The aroma of fresh bread drifted through the air. She tightened her grip on the handle. "I'll take good care of grandmother." Then she stepped outside. The village slowly disappeared behind her as she approached the forest. Tall trees stretched towards heaven. Sunlight filtered through the leaves like liquid gold. The familiar dirt path wound between moss-covered stones and ancient roots. For a moment, she remembered her mother's warning. "Stay on the path. Do not speak to strangers." She nodded to herself. "I'll be careful." The journey began peacefully. Birds chirped overhead, squirrels darted between tree trunks, leaves crunched beneath her shoes. The forest was breathtaking. Everywhere she looked, nature seemed alive. Tiny mushrooms grew beside fallen logs, wildflowers peeked through patches of grass, dragonflies shimmered above narrow streams. Little Red Riding Hood smiled. She had walked this path many times before. There was nothing to fear. Or so she believed. She couldn't know that unseen eyes were already watching her from the shadows. Patient, silent, curious. Deep within the forest, a wolf had noticed the girl in the red hood, and before this day was over, their paths would cross. The peaceful journey to grandmother's cottage was about to be the most dangerous adventure of Little Red Riding Hood's life. The forest had always seemed beautiful to Little Red Riding Hood. Sunlight filtered through the tall trees, birds sang cheerful melodies. The gentle breeze carried the scent of pine, wildflowers, and damp earth. As she walked along the narrow path, the basket in her hands swung softly from side to side. Inside were fresh bread, homemade jam, sweet pastries, and medicinal herbs prepared lovingly by her mother. She smiled to herself. Grandmother would be delighted. Perhaps they would drink tea together. Perhaps grandmother would tell another one of her wonderful stories. The thought made Little Red Riding Hood quicken her pace. She couldn't wait to see her. But hidden among the shadows of the forest, another pair of eyes watched her closely. Silent, patient, calculating. Behind the thick bushes stood a wolf. He was larger than any ordinary wolf. His gray fur blended perfectly with the surrounding trees. His golden eyes gleamed with intelligence. Unlike other wolves, this one possessed a cunning mind. He studied the girl carefully. A child would have turned back at the sight of him. A wise traveler would have fled. But the wolf noticed something important. Little Red Riding Hood was not afraid, because she hadn't seen him, not yet. The wolf stepped quietly from behind the trees. His movements were smooth and controlled. He wore an expression of harmless curiosity. When he finally appeared on the path ahead, Little Red Riding Hood stopped. Her heart skipped for a moment. A wolf, standing directly before her. For an instant, her mother's warning echoed inside her. Do not speak to strangers. She tightened the grip on the basket. The wolf lowered his head politely. Good morning, he said. Little Red Riding Hood blinked. The wolf could talk? His voice sounded calm and friendly. Her fear softened. Good morning, she replied cautiously. The wolf smiled. What brings you so deep into the forest all by yourself? Little Red Riding Hood hesitated. She knew what her mother had said. Do not speak to strangers. But the wolf didn't seem dangerous. In fact, he sounded quite pleasant. I'm visiting my grandmother, she answered. The wolf tilted his head. How thoughtful. Is your grandmother ill? Little Red Riding Hood nodded. Yes, my mother prepared food and medicine for her. What a kind granddaughter you are. His words made her smile. Thank you. The wolf glanced at the basket. What delicious treats you must be carrying. Little Red Riding Hood lifted the cloth slightly. Fresh bread, pastries, jam, and herbs. The wolf's eyes narrowed briefly. Then he smiled again. Your grandmother is fortunate. He paused. And where does she live? Little Red Riding Hood pointed deeper into the woods. Near the old oak grove, the cottage covered in climbing roses. The wolf's ears twitched. He knew exactly where that was. A dangerous idea slowly formed inside his mind. He looked back at the girl. You've chosen a lovely day for a walk. Little Red Riding Hood glanced around. The forest truly was beautiful. Sunlight danced between the branches overhead. Butterflies drifted through patches of wildflowers. A family of rabbits darted across the undergrowth. The wolf noticed her wonder. You know, he said softly, most travelers hurry so much that they miss the forest's treasures. Treasures? He nodded. Have you noticed the wildflowers blooming near the stream? Little Red Riding Hood looked surprised. No. They're extraordinary. The most beautiful flowers in the forest. He gestured toward a narrow trail. I'm sure your grandmother would love them. The girl hesitated. Her mother's warning returned. Stay on the path. She looked at the basket, then toward the hidden trail, then back at the wolf. It would only take a moment, the wolf said gently, and imagine how happy your grandmother would be. Little Red Riding Hood bit her lip. Grandmother loved flowers. Perhaps just a few, she said slowly. I suppose I could gather some. The wolf smiled. A wonderful idea. Without another word, Little Red Riding Hood stepped away from the path. The wolf watched as she disappeared among the trees. Then his friendly expression vanished. In its place appeared a cold, calculating grin. Perfect, he whispered. With astonishing speed, he raced through the forest. He knew a shortcut. Long legs carried him swiftly over roots and stones. Birds scattered into the sky as he passed. Branches snapped beneath powerful paws. His destination was clear: grandmother's cottage. Meanwhile, Little Red Riding Hood wandered among patches of wildflowers. Blue blossoms, golden daisies, tiny white flowers swaying gently in the breeze. She picked them carefully. Oh, grandmother will love these. One bouquet became two became three. She spotted butterflies, then mushrooms shaped like tiny umbrellas, then sparkling streams reflecting sunlight. The forest felt magical. Time slipped away unnoticed. Eventually, she noticed something strange. The sunlight had shifted. The shadows had grown longer. Little Red Riding Hood frowned. Have I been here that long? A sudden feeling of unease settled in her chest. She remembered her promise. Stay on the path. Her mother's worried expression flashed through her mind. Little Red Riding Hood's smile faded. I should go. Quickly gathering her basket and flowers, she hurried back toward the main trail. Meanwhile, far ahead, the wolf arrived at Grandmother's cottage. He approached quietly. The small house stood peacefully beneath cowering trees. Roses climbed the wooden walls. Smoke drifted from the chimney. Inside, Grandmother rested under warm blankets, weak from fever, unaware of the danger approaching. The wolf knocked softly. "Who's there?" Grandmother called. "It's Little Red Riding Hood. I've brought food." Grandmother smiled faintly. "The latch is open, dear." The wolf's eyes gleamed. Slowly, he pushed open the door. The peaceful cottage fell silent. Outside, clouds drifted across the afternoon sky. Deep in the forest, Little Red Riding Hood hurried along the path. Her footsteps quickened. A strange fear gripped her heart. She didn't understand why, but something felt wrong. Very wrong. Ahead, the trees seemed darker. The wind carried an unfamiliar chill. And waiting beyond the cottage door, the cunning wolf had already begun putting the final pieces of his The cottage seemed unnaturally still. No birds perched on the fence, no squirrels raced through the branches. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Little Red Riding Hood stopped. A strange uneasiness tightened her stomach. "Grandmother," she called softly. No answer came. She walked toward the wooden gate. The roses swayed gently beside her. Again, she called out, "Grandmother!" Still silence. Perhaps Grandmother had fallen asleep. After all, she wasn't feeling well. Trying to calm herself, Little Red Riding Hood climbed the porch steps. Knock, knock, knock. "It's me," she said cheerfully. "Little Red Riding Hood." For a moment, there was no response. Then, from inside the cottage, came a weak voice. "Come in, dear." The voice sounded strange, raspy, deeper than usual. Little Red Riding Hood frowned. "Grandmother? I have a sore throat." The explanation seemed reasonable. She pushed open the door. The familiar scent of herbs filled the room. The fireplace crackled softly. Everything looked exactly as she remembered. But beneath it, something else appeared. Courage. She stood, straightened her red hood, and faced the wolf. Because even the bravest hearts can be afraid. True courage isn't the absence of fear. It's choosing to stand anyway. The wolf took another step forward. His shadow stretched across the forest floor. And somewhere beyond the trees, a new sound suddenly echoed through the woods. The sound of approaching footsteps. Strong, fast, determined. Little Red Riding Hood wasn't alone after all. And the story of the girl in the red hood was far from over. Because the hunter was coming. Little Red Riding Hood stood frozen among the towering trees. The wolf moved closer. Slowly, deliberately. His golden eyes gleamed beneath the fading afternoon light, and a terrifying smile stretched across his face. Around them, the forest had fallen silent. No birds sang, no leaves rustled. Even the wind seemed afraid to breathe. Little Red Riding Hood's ankle throbbed from her fall. Her hands trembled. Her heart pounded so loudly she thought the wolf could hear it. For the first time in her life, fear threatened to overwhelm her completely. The wolf tilted his head. "You've nowhere left to run," he said softly. His voice was calm, too calm. "Poor little girl, you should have stayed home." Little Red Riding Hood backed away until she felt the rough bark of a tree against her shoulders. There was nowhere else to go. She remembered the moment she had stepped off the forest path. She remembered the friendly smile the wolf had worn. She remembered her mother's warning. The world is beautiful, and sometimes it can also be dangerous. Tears filled her eyes, but she wiped them away. No. She would not give up. The wolf took another step forward. "You trusted too easily." "I only wanted flowers for grandmother," she whispered. The wolf chuckled. "And now you've learned something important." His sharp teeth gleamed. Kindness without caution can be dangerous. Little Red Riding Hood swallowed hard. Even through her fear, she lifted her chin. "You tricked me." The wolf smiled wider. "I did, and I'd do it again." He crouched low, preparing to leap. Little Red Riding Hood closed her eyes for a single heartbeat. Then, crack! A branch snapped somewhere nearby. The wolf froze. His ears twitched. Another sound followed. Heavy footsteps, fast, determined. Someone was running through the forest. The wolf growled. Little Red Riding Hood opened her eyes. Through the trees emerged a tall figure dressed in rugged clothing. He carried an axe across one shoulder. His expression was serious, alert. It was the village hunter. He had spent years protecting travelers and keeping watch over the forests surrounding the village. Earlier that afternoon, while tracking deer through the woods, he had heard a scream. Little Red Riding Hood's scream. Without hesitation, he had rushed toward the sound. His eyes widened as he took in the scene before him. The frightened girl, the snarling wolf, the fear hanging in the air. The hunter lowered his axe. "Step away from her," he commanded. The wolf bared his teeth. "This doesn't concern you." The hunter planted himself firmly between Little Red Riding Hood and the beast. "It concerns me now." Little Red Riding Hood stared up at him. Relief flooded through her body. But the wolf simply laughed. "You think you can stop me?" The hunter's voice remained calm. "I know I can try." For a moment, no one moved. The forest seemed suspended in time. Then, with a thunderous roar, the wolf attacked. He lunged toward the hunter. The hunter reacted instantly. He swung the wooden handle of his axe, forcing the wolf aside. The beast crashed into the undergrowth. Leaves exploded into the air. The wolf recovered quickly, too quickly. He circled them, searching, waiting. The hunter kept his gaze fixed on the predator. Without turning around, he spoke softly. "Can you stand?" Little Red Riding Hood tested her injured ankle. Pain shot through her leg. "I think so." "Good. When I tell you to run, you run." "What about grandmother?" she asked desperately. The hunter's expression darkened. "We'll find her." The wolf growled. "No one is going anywhere." Again, he charged. This time, the hunter narrowly avoided the snapping jaws. The axe slipped from his hands and landed several feet away. Little Red Riding Hood gasped. The hunter stumbled. The wolf seized the opportunity. He pounced. The two crashed to the forest floor. The hunter struggled to hold back the wolf's powerful jaws. Sharp teeth snapped inches from his face. The wolf was stronger than he expected. Little Red Riding Hood looked around wildly. Her eyes landed on the fallen axe. The hunter strained against the beast. "Run!" he shouted. But Little Red Riding Hood remained where she was. Fear surged through her. She wanted to flee. She wanted to hide. Yet she remembered something grandmother often said. Courage isn't about never being afraid. It's about doing what's right despite fear. Little Red Riding Hood looked at the hunter. He had risked his life to save her. She couldn't abandon him. Ignoring the pain in her ankle, she limped toward the fallen axe. The wolf's claws dug into the hunter's shoulders. The hunter's strength was fading. "Little Red Riding Hood!" he shouted. But Little Red Riding Hood had already reached the axe. Using both hands, she lifted it. It was heavier than she expected, much heavier. The wolf noticed movement behind him. He turned. His golden eyes widened. Little Red Riding Hood stood there trembling, holding the axe. "I may have made mistakes. I may have ignored warnings, but I won't let you hurt anyone else." The wolf snarled. Then, suddenly, a loud horn echoed through the forest. Voices followed, human voices. Several woodcutters had heard the commotion. The hunter had not come alone after all. The wolf glanced toward the approaching sounds. For the first time since meeting him, fear appeared in his eyes. He released the hunter. The hunter scrambled backward. The wolf looked from the arriving men to Little Red Riding Hood to the path leading deeper into the woods. Then, with a final roar, he turned and disappeared into the forest shadows. Branches snapped, leaves rustled, and then silence. The wolf was gone. Little Red Riding Hood dropped the axe. Her legs gave way beneath her. The hunter quickly steadied her. "It's all right," he said gently. "It's over." Tears streamed down her cheeks. "I was so scared." "I know." He helped her stand. But being brave doesn't mean you aren't afraid. It means you keep going anyway. Little Red Riding Hood looked toward grandmother's cottage. "Grandmother?" The hunter nodded. "Let's go." Together, accompanied by the woodcutters, they hurried back through the forest. As they approached the cottage, Little Red Riding Hood's heart pounded once more. She feared what they might find. The front door remained open. The house was in disarray. Chairs overturned, curtains torn, blankets scattered. "Grandmother?" Little Red Riding Hood called. A weak voice answered from inside. "Dear?" Relief flooded her entire body. Following the sound, they discovered grandmother safely hidden inside a storage cupboard where she had managed to lock herself after escaping the wolf. Though frightened and exhausted, she was alive. Little Red Riding Hood rushed forward and embraced her tightly. "Grandmother!" "My dear child." Grandmother stroked her hair. "You came." Tears filled both their eyes. The hunter smiled quietly. Outside, the first stars began appearing in the evening sky. The nightmare was finally ending. But Little Red Riding Hood knew she would never forget this day, because sometimes the greatest lessons are learned through difficult choices, and she had learned that kindness should walk hand in hand with wisdom. The forest was still beautiful. The world was still full of wonder, but trust had to be earned, and courage often appeared when it was needed most. Little Red Riding Hood held Grandmother's hand tightly. She had made mistakes, but she had also discovered a strength within herself she never knew existed. And though the wolf had vanished into the shadows, the story of the girl in the red hood was not quite finished, for one final lesson still awaited her. A lesson about responsibility, forgiveness, and growing wiser from the choices we make.
The forest had finally grown quiet again. The terrifying growls of the wolf had faded into distant memory, replaced by the gentle rustling of leaves overhead. Moonlight spilled through the branches, bathing Grandmother's cottage in a soft silver glow. Inside the cozy little home, the fire crackled warmly in the stone hearth. The overturned chairs had been set upright, broken dishes had been swept away, fresh tea simmered gently above the flames. For the first time since the nightmare began, Little Red Riding Hood felt safe. She sat beside Grandmother, wrapped in a thick wool blanket. Her ankle had been bandaged, her red hood rested neatly on her lap. Across the room, the hunter stood quietly near the window. The woodcutters had already returned to the village, carrying news that the dangerous wolf had fled deep into the wilderness. Silence settled over the cottage. Then Grandmother reached over and gently held Little Red Riding Hood's hand. "My dear child," she said softly. Little Red Riding Hood lowered her eyes. "I'm sorry, Grandmother." Grandmother tilted her head. "Sorry?" Tears welled in the girl's eyes. "I didn't listen. Mother warned me. She told me not to speak to strangers. She told me not to leave the path. But I did." Her voice cracked. "And because of my mistake, you were put in danger." The room remained quiet. The fire popped softly. Grandmother squeezed her hand. "My dear," she said gently, "everyone makes mistakes." Little Red Riding Hood looked up. "Even grown-ups?" Grandmother smiled. "Especially grown-ups." The hunter chuckled quietly. "It's true." Grandmother brushed a strand of hair from beneath the girl's red hood. "The important question isn't whether we make mistakes, it's what we choose to do after them." Little Red Riding Hood frowned. "What do you mean?" Grandmother's eyes sparkled kindly. "Some people blame others. Some refuse to learn. But the wisest people accept responsibility. They learn, they grow stronger, they become better than they were before." Little Red Riding Hood thought carefully about those words. She remembered the moment she'd stepped off the path, the excitement, the curiosity, the confidence that nothing bad could happen. Then she remembered the fear, the wolf's sharp teeth, the hunter risking his life to save her. Slowly, she nodded. "I understand." Grandmother smiled. "I believe you do." The next morning, the three of them returned to the village. As they walked along the familiar road, villagers gathered to greet them. News of what had happened had spread quickly. Everyone wanted to know if Grandmother was safe. Everyone wanted to see Little Red Riding Hood. When they spotted her, relief washed over their faces. "You're all right. We were so worried. Thank goodness you're safe." Little Red Riding Hood smiled shyly. "I am." Then she noticed her mother rushing through the crowd. Tears streamed down her cheeks. Without hesitation, she wrapped Little Red Riding Hood in a tight embrace. "Ah, thank heavens!" "I'm sorry," Little Red Riding Hood whispered. "I didn't listen." Her mother pulled back and looked into her daughter's eyes. "Were you frightened?" Little Red Riding Hood nodded. "I've never been so scared." Her mother gently touched her face. "You made a mistake." Little Red Riding Hood lowered her head. "Yes, but you're home now." She blinked. "You're not angry?" Her mother smiled sadly. "I was afraid. I was worried. But anger isn't what matters most right now." Little Red Riding Hood looked confused. "What matters?" Her mother wrapped an arm around her shoulders. "That you learned something important." Tears filled Little Red Riding Hood's eyes once again. "I did. I promise." Her mother kissed her forehead. "Then that's enough." In the days that followed, life slowly returned to normal. The villagers repaired grandmother's cottage, the hunter resumed his patrols through the forest, the woodcutters returned to their work, and Little Red Riding Hood helped wherever she could. She delivered fresh bread to neighbors, she carried water for elderly villagers, she gathered herbs with grandmother. But something about her had changed. She still loved adventures, she still admired the beauty of the forest, she still asked questions about the world beyond the village. Yet now, she paused before making decisions. She listened more carefully, she thought before acting. One afternoon, while helping grandmother tend her garden, she asked, "Do you think being curious is bad?" Grandmother looked surprised. "Why would you ask that?" "Because curiosity got me into trouble." Grandmother smiled. "No, my dear, curiosity isn't the enemy." Little Red Riding Hood tilted her head. "It isn't?" Grandmother shook her head. "Curiosity helps us learn. It encourages discovery. It inspires adventure." She gently lifted a blooming rose. "But wisdom teaches us when to be cautious." Little Red Riding Hood considered this. "So I shouldn't stop being curious?" Grandmother laughed softly. "Of course not. The world is full of wonderful things waiting to be explored. Just remember to carry wisdom alongside wonder." Little Red Riding Hood smiled. "I think I understand." Grandmother squeezed her hand. "I think you do too." Weeks passed. Autumn slowly gave way to winter. Snow covered the rooftops of the village. Children built snowmen in the square. Smoke curled from chimneys. The forest transformed into a silent kingdom of white. One evening, Little Red Riding Hood sat beside the fireplace. Her red hood rested comfortably around her shoulders. She gazed into the dancing flames. The events of that day in the forest no longer filled her with terror. Instead, they reminded her how much she had grown. She had learned that not everyone who smiled could be trusted. She had learned that courage often appears when fear is strongest. She had learned that mistakes are not the end of our story. They are often the beginning of growth. And most importantly, she had learned that love and forgiveness are powerful teachers. Across the room, grandmother closed her knitting basket. "What are you thinking about?" she asked. Little Red Riding Hood smiled softly. "I'm thinking that I was very lucky." Grandmother raised an eyebrow. "Lucky?" "The hunter arrived. You were safe. Mother forgave me. And I was given a second chance." Grandmother's expression softened. "Second chances are precious gifts." Little Red Riding Hood nodded. "I don't want to waste mine." "You won't." "How do you know?" Grandmother reached over and touched her cheek. "Because your heart is good, and good hearts learn from their mistakes." Years later, people throughout the village would still tell the story of the girl in the red hood. Some remembered the cunning wolf, others remembered the brave hunter. Many remembered the frightened child who wandered from the path.
But those who truly understood the story remembered something deeper. They remembered that courage is not the absence of fear, it is choosing to do what is right despite being afraid. They remembered that curiosity can lead us towards wonderful discoveries, but wisdom helps us recognize danger. They remembered that mistakes are not the end of our story, they are often the beginning of growth. And most importantly, they remembered that kindness, guided by wisdom, becomes one of the greatest strengths a person can possess. As for Little Red Riding Hood, she never stopped exploring. She never stopped wondering. She never stopped believing in the goodness of others. But she also learned to trust carefully, to listen closely, and to honor the advice of those who loved her. Whenever she walked through the village wearing her beloved red hood, people smiled and waved, and she smiled back. For she knew something she hadn't understood before. The world truly was beautiful, filled with wonder, filled with adventure, filled with kindness. But it also required courage, wisdom, and a heart willing to learn. And so, the girl in the red hood continued her journey through life, not as the same child who had once wandered carelessly into danger, but as someone stronger, wiser, and more compassionate than before. Because every great story leaves us with a lesson, and the lesson of Little Red Riding Hood is this: be curious enough to explore the world, be wise enough to recognize danger, be brave enough to face your fears, and be kind enough to grow from your mistakes. For even the darkest paths can lead us home if we have the courage to keep walking.